Welcome and thank you for joining the channel. Please help this channel by liking and subscribing. We really appreciate it. There are no ads on this video. If you have a scary story you would like me to share on this channel, comment below and your story will be featured in a video. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy these creepy encounters with the paranormal, accompanied by rain and thunder. 3 men in a deserted field, digging shallow graves. In the glare of headlights, they sift soil and toss rocks, disturb worms and kill crickets. No one speaks. Everyone sweats. Thunderclouds whirl on the horizon. Flicking lightning in hot bursts, they feel the humanity on their skin, like a wet blanket. Curse the rain as it nears. Good enough, one concludes. They pull 2 sheet-wrapped bundles from the bed of the truck, sink them into the earth without ceremony. Then they struggle to hide the bodies and bury their sins with loose dirt. Stomp atop the graves in haste to pack down the evidence of their cruelty. "You smell that?" one asks, and they all pause, chests heaving, hands trembling. The breeze blows strong off the storm front, bringing acrid smoke and fire into their noses. It smells of gasoline and blood, metallic, harsh, and a rot so pungent they gag and retreat, pinch fingers over nostrils, and scramble into the truck as the lightning lashes close. Thunder woofs over the vehicle and cracks sharp to drown out the panting of the men. The truck skids in reverse, stalls when gear shifted into drive. The fuck? Darkness as the headlights die, as the storm clouds descend, as the remoteness of their location amplifies sound. Snick at the undercarriage, click at the door, scramble atop the roof as thunder howls and lightning strikes like jaws to the throat. The rain cools the wreckage, shallows the graves. Worms explore the shredded remnants of sheets, the shiny tags of dog collars. I sat on my bed, grumbling to myself about my punishment. Grounded. How? Because I tried cheating off the smart kid, and the snitch caught me and tattled. That little shit. This was why he didn't have any friends. It's because I'm not good in algebra. That was my excuse. My parents and teachers didn't buy it, and now I'm stuck in my room. I couldn't go out with friends or play games on my console, and all my enjoyment was stripped away from me for the entire weekend. The only entertainment I could fester was making an ugly drawing of the stitch that got me near, sticking it to my bedroom wall and throwing crumpled up papers at it. Despite it making me feel a little bit better, I was still angry. I was about to throw another one when a loud bang startled me. It came from the kitchen. The loud, heavy footsteps coming to the kitchen told me my dad was there, and he was pissed. It sounded like he was yelling at something, but his voice was cut off. Now think about how someone would sound when they fall into a wood chipper. That's precisely how my dad screamed. The rugged, stern, but caring man I knew was now crying as if he was being tortured. He begged for whatever was hurting him to stop. My mom followed shortly after she heard my dad. Her screams were as loud as a wailing banshee. My heart rate started to increase as I quickly locked my bedroom door. Bile threatened to burst out of my mouth and onto the floor, but I forced it down. My parents are dead, and I can't call for help because my phone was taken away as part of my punishment. I put my hands through my hair as panic began to set in. Then I heard footsteps approaching my door. I clenched my hands over my mouth as tears began to swell from my eyes. I forced my body not to make a single sound so whatever was at my door would not know that anyone was here. And somehow, it worked. The footsteps went away from my door. Relief was coming back inside me when I suddenly heard the footsteps again, only this time they were added with the sound of something dragging across the floor. The footsteps returned at my door, and when silence rolled by, it started doing something. It started tearing into whatever it had brought with it. Wet sounds of flesh and blood blurted out. My confusion soon evolved into horror upon realization. When it was finished, it threw something wet. Squishy sounds emitted as it threw different wet objects at my door. As it did so, I felt my stomach give out. I collapsed on the floor and spilled the vial I've been holding within me as I began sobbing uncontrollably. I think it's too late to save you now, even if I wanted to, which I don't, to be clear. Your fate was halfway sealed when you did what you did, and the coffin was nailed shut once I joined the Order of Emernies. When my sister was attacked, and it became apparent that the fucker who hurt her wasn't even going to see the inside of a jail cell, I'd have died or killed to make him pay for it. The only thing was, if I got caught, then my sister wouldn't have had anyone. I just couldn't do that to her, you know? Not after what she's been through. And so it needed to be untraceable. That's when the Order of Emernies came into it. A murder cult, I guess you could say. But it's more than that. The Order is about setting things right. Is this a joke? I'd asked the friend who told me. I'm completely serious. You don't have to join. Just don't tell anyone, or I'll be, well. She drew her finger across her throat, and I knew she wasn't joking. Oh, you don't count. You're on your way out anyway. I could have asked the Order of Resources to help kill you. A gun or poison, perhaps. There'd have been no guarantee I'd gotten it, and certainly no way to know who sent it. But from the way I understood it, was some members have quite deep pockets and strong connections. I haven't met all of the Order, and I never will. But there are still ways to pass messages along when it's needed. In the end, though, I just went for a knife, the kitchen knife. I brought with me is from a major supermarket chain, and nobody will be looking for me as the culprit anyway. Add in the fact that you're much smaller than the man I actually want dead, and I had no real fear that I'd be overpowered. That's the smartest thing about the Order, I think. That we share the load. I don't even know who it is who wants you dead, and when some stranger gets rid of Thomas, they'll be just as clueless as to who wanted him dead. So you never wronged me. I don't even know you, but you've wronged someone. And I said at the start that I'd kill if it would make Thomas play. I never said it had to be him that I killed. My belief is that many people in this world can comprehend my fear. I am enveloped in darkness. I can hear the quiet tick-tock of a clock on the far wall of my apartment. The whirring of a drone can be heard outside my door. Mr. Time, is it time to come out? The drone's robotic voice chimes. I stay quiet, not daring to make a sound. After a few minutes, the drone decides to move on. This happens every day at the same time. It started 20 years ago when AI was first heard about. After the sickness, the government made it mandatory that checks be made every day. The checks got more and more frequent. Slowly, everyone in my apartment complex started to disappear. It started when, once every month, drones would come by and say that the apartment had to be contaminated and that we would have to be quarantined. Each time this happened, a person would disappear. Rumors started to spread that nobody was sick at all. Slowly over time, the apartment complex became empty. I was the last that hadn't been taken. So I thought. But as I sit here in the darkness reading my file, Earl time, status infected, diagnosed technophobia, wife and children. The bottom of the paper is ripped, lost to the darkness around me. I had a wife and children. I don't remember anything on this paper. I remember what happened 20 years ago. Up until a year ago, my memory is gone. I stand on unsteady feet. I have no idea how long I have been here in the dark. I fumble around until something cuts my finger. White hot pain shoots through my hand and up my arm. I can sense that the wound on my finger is slowly bleeding. I feel the glass. That's probably what I cut my finger on. Under the glass is the smooth, waxy feel of the photo. I root around in my pocket and find a lighter. The light sparks and catches a tiny flame dancing from its metallic form. Light from the flame dances over the photos. It's a picture of a woman and 2 kids. I flip over the picture. Written in red ink are the words, "Bear in mind us. Be mindful of your fear." With shaking hands, the photo easily slips out of my hands, like they did all those months ago. The photo catches the edge of the flame. The hungry flames licks up the edges of their faces, turning them into ash. I hear a whirring as the fire sensors go off. Suddenly, there are drones all around me. That's the last thing I see as my world falls into darkness. "Go ahead, open it up," I prodded, lightly grasping her small shoulders. She grinned happily and began to tear the paper off. Inside was a brown shoebox, which she proceeded to open. And inside of that was a smaller, identical shoebox. "You got me a box, Dad?" she questioned, picking it up. I laughed a bit and opened it up, revealing what was really inside. It was a shiny, expensive-looking pendant with an intricate pattern. Lily was turning 14, and she had been obsessed with jewelry. It worked out nicely that I had this necklace, and I knew that Lily would love it. Not to mention, Kaylee would be surprised as well. She came from the basement as Lily swung the pendant like a pendulum in front of her eyes, captivating by its luster. I gave Kaylee, my beautiful wife, a smile which she returned with an extra hint of warmth. Coming upstairs with an ice cream cake from the freezer. "Lily, what a beautiful necklace," Kaylee exclaimed, sweeping towards us and wrapping Lily in what was probably the 10th birthday hug that day, giving me an impressed glance. The days following, Lily wore that necklace passionately. There wasn't a time when I didn't see it fancifully displayed around her neck, and it made me smile. But one night, her screams rang out, jolting us awake. Rushing into her room, Kaylee and I found her shaking softly on her bed, her sheets damp, and her hands clutched so tightly around something that her little knuckles were white. I unclasped her hands and sat her up. Kaylee turned on the light to give some comfort, but the light revealed the horrors that the darkness would have rather kept. Lily's face. Jagged cuts littered her pale skin, extending in root-like twisted structures. Her left eye had fallen from its socket and dangled out, still attached to the optic nerve. Kaylee froze in shock, and I stared at the pendant that Lily's hand still tried to close around. With a swift motion, I pulled it away from her and threw it on the ground, knowing I may have been too late. But Lily screamed louder and shook more violently, Her body tensed and she grabbed wildly at the air. Blood and vomit began to trickle from her mouth and nose. Then something broke, and her eye detached, plopping onto the bed with a squelch, and I knew it was over. Kaylee screamed and I snatched up the pendant, rushing outside. I tore through the yard and into the alleyway. What the fuck, Zerla? Why'd you do that so soon? I liked that family. Come on, big bro, I got hungry. You know how our system works. One plays the husband, one plays the object. Possessor brothers, right? Right, I grumbled. But I'm the object next. Get me onto an adult woman, got it? You know I hate the taste of kids' insides. We called him Charlie Longneck. He was the bottom of Rockmort High's social hierarchy. Everyone knew him, but no one noticed him. He was always just sort of there. Too lame for the stoners, too weird for the nerds, first to get beat up by jocks, and last to get picked for dodgeball. He was a pale, gangy mess of a kid. Like he was built out of a wire. His large head sat atop a skinny neck that seemed about 3 inches too long. And he was quiet. Uncomfortably quiet. He'd speak when called on in class, but that's about it. The rest of the time, he just stared with his big, watery eyes. And he was my best friend. He kind of just followed me around one day. He was weird at first, but he didn't bother me at all. Just seemed happy to sit with me at lunch or listen to me vent. Eventually, I began enjoying the company. I could tell he enjoyed it too. After a few months of this, he even began talking to me. I've been watching them for years, observing. I still don't understand. Understand what? I asked, puzzled. The other kids, he asked, his voice nasally shrill. Why don't they like me? People can be assholes, Charlie. They don't like things that are different. Why not? I shrugged. Humans can be animals like that. He put his long, thin fingers together as if in deep thought. Animals. Yes. I don't know why, but something about his big hands and dinner plate eyes made me nervous. I put it out of my mind until the following week. Charlie and I were in the cafeteria, and he was showing me his science project. He called it a star map. It was a big grid laid out with the names of stars and galaxies and stuff. Whatever it was important to him. And then Kevin Linkley, dickhead extraordinaire, walked over and dumped a cartoon of milk on it. His other asshole friends cheered him on. Charlie's project was ruined, the ink running with spilled milk off the table. I tried to comfort him, but he didn't seem angry. He looked determined, like he finally made up his mind. Don't come to school tomorrow, he said, as we mopped up the mess. You're a good friend. I convinced myself that he was joking. Charlie was weird, but he was harmless. I told him that if I stayed home, he was staying home too. It was the only time I ever saw him smile. I told my mom I was sick that night, and planned on texting Charlie in the morning. Mix 1 part Kovac vodka, 2 parts V8 spicy hot. Stir in a pinch of salt and pepper. Add a pickle spare. And serve in a tall glass with ice. That's how my husband liked his Bloody Mary. Only unfortunately, I can't get our pickle jar to open. My mother warned me about this. She said sometimes a man will make you need him. My husband would never do that. He loves me and only wants the best for me. When I got pregnant, he said I should quit my job and focus on raising our baby. He wanted to take care of me and our child. Even still, I cannot open the pickles. I can't seem to get a good grip. I think, yeah, he might have tightened it on purpose. I hate to admit it, but maybe he is trying to make me dependent on him. My mom said her ex-husband used to do things like that. He'd tighten the jars in the fridge so she'd have to come to him for help. Beg him to open them for her. He'd wield that power over her, and so much worse. She said she left him high and dry before he had the chance to ruin her life, or furiously end it. It's the little things he'd do. Those were the worst. Made me question my sanity until I realized he was full of shit. I never went back. No, I'm probably overthinking things. My husband just tying the lid without realizing it. He's big and strong after all. I'm sure it was an accident. Besides, it's not like he's being controlling in other ways. Well, I mean, he did get mad when I suggested we shouldn't go through with the pregnancy. The economy sucks right now, and paying for daycare would be a nightmare. I hate to admit it, but that was the first time he got physical. I just wanted to do more financially secure before I quit my job, but he freaked out. He apologized right after, though. He just lost his temper. Regardless, I cannot open these fucking pickle jars. And I know I'm going to have to ask him for help to get it open. I hate having to ask him for help with silly things like this. It makes me feel weak and pitiful, but that's the price to pay for being a housewife. Hey, can you come here, please? I cried. He didn't respond, but he walked into the kitchen anyway. Can you help me open this jar? I asked. The lid is too tight. My husband didn't even look at me. He just stared right through me, grabbed the jar of pickles, and walked off with it. Excuse me, I said, following behind him. What am I, minced meat? When I followed him into the living room, my corpse was lying there on the ground, and my husband chewed on the pickle, thinking about how he was going to dispose of my corpse. I hadn't seen Grandma in years, so she invited me to stay with her after hearing I was unemployed and struggling with life. It felt like a good deal. The first day, she insisted on a tour, showing me around the town with evident passion, like she wanted me to fall in love with the place. By nightfall, I'd pick up a job at a local burger joint. Nothing glamorous, but work is work. That night, we had dinner. I put on my jacket and gloves, since the December wind can be punishingly harsh, and went for a walk. It was a habit now, nightly walks after dinner. There was something inexplicably soothing about the experience. The next morning, we sat down at breakfast. Grandma had the TV on as usual, murmuring about the price of eggs. Then, the news anchor's voice broke in. The first reporter murder in over a decade here. Victim found dead with several neck trauma. Apparently bled out from a wound to the jugular. No suspects are known at this time. Grandma put down her fork, her face drained of color. In this town? Good Lord, what's this place coming to? I sipped my coffee and shrugged. Crazy things happen everywhere. The next time I left for my walk as usual, Grandma caught me by the door. She looked sick with concern. Are you really going to go out after that? After what happened? Relax, Grandma. If someone tries anything, I'll outrun them. Fastest kid in my school, remember? She didn't laugh, but I left anyway. I liked my walks. Wasn't about to stop just because someone ended up dead. The following morning, Grandmother was munching on her toast, listening to the news anxiously. Yet another body was found early this morning. Victim appears to have died from a single neck wound. The pattern is disturbingly similar to the murder reported just yesterday. Grandma looked like she was about to have a fit. I had to calm her down. By the third morning, I was getting used to the police sirens. Grandma, however, was more jittery than ever. Police suspect a serial killer, warning townfolk to avoid unnecessary outings. The news anchor droned on. The last victim's cause of death, a stab wound in the chest. I paused. the coffee halfway to my lips. A stab wound? She murmured something about wanting me to skip my walks for a while, and I nodded absently. That night, I waited for Grandma to go to bed before I slipped out for my walk. The streets were as empty as ever. Then, I saw him. A figure standing in the alleyway, hood up, knife in hand. The second he saw me, he darted forward, knife raised. I dodged his first swipe, drove my fist into his gut. His grip loosened, and I felt the cool handle of the knife slip into my own. I sliced his jugular. This town only needs one of us. It was 11 a.m. on the dot when the first car drove off the bridge. Poor soul, my wife had said. They were probably texting and driving. I nodded in agreement, though I had seen no phone in her hand as I passed her. The bridge had been stuck for over an hour now. We were boxed in on all sides, so we couldn't turn around. But this bridge was the only way to my mother's. The second car veered off the road, but this time we had been stopped when it happened. What do you suppose that was? I asked. We were already stopped. Maybe they forgot to put their brakes on, my wife suggested. Or maybe they wanted to die anyway, and the traffic gave them an opportunity. You're probably right, I said, but it didn't stop the growing sense of unease in my stomach. My phone rang. It was Blake, my brother, from the car behind me. I answered. What do you think made those people drive off the bridge? Blake asked. I'm not sure. They must have had a reason, Blake continued. Nobody drives off a bridge to their death for no reason. Guess we'll never know, I said before hanging up. A third car drove off the bridge, taking another car with it as they rammed them from the inner lane. Then another, and another, until it was a steady stream of cars. Why are they doing this? What do they know that I don't? I looked frantically to my wife, but found no comfort in her staring at her phone. More cars drove off the bridge. Is the bridge going to collapse? Did something happen? Is surviving really a fate worse than death to these people? Another car drove into the water, and the bridge attendant got a pained look on his face and jumped off the bridge. Where are they not telling us? I asked my wife. These people have to have a reason to be killing themselves. My wife looked annoyed. I don't know. Maybe they planned a group suicide today or something. Let's just focus on what we can control. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. What horrors waited out there for us? That's when I saw Blake's car behind me drive off the bridge. That's it. If Blake did it, whatever is out there has to be really bad. I don't want to keep living in a world with whatever this is. I turned the wheel all the way to the left and gunned it before my wife could stop me. As I was crashing through the water, the last thing I heard was the radio. Breaking news. Self-driving cars are all over the world veer off the road today due to a glitch in the update. I sit next to a man who raised me. He just looks at me, filled with judgment as I cook his dinner, like he always does. This thing used to look like a bag of leaves when my mom brought him in a year ago. She told me to treat him like it was my dad, and the love would grow as identity is constructed by the mind. For the first few months, it was just a nuisance, as if they were a new chore in the house. I would say hi to it in the morning and act like he responded. I would place it next to me while I watched TV and check its reaction as if I was showing someone my favorite movie. The tension began when I went to get water at 4 a.m. The bag's shadow resembled a man. I pushed it out of my mind, and it, much like a picture, once you see the illusion. I haven't seen the bag since. It has just looked like my father's lifeless body. My surprise turned to disgust when I realized it was just going to stare at me with a slight smile. Despite his state, or lack therefore, I began to take his stares personally. I would scream at him every day, and his lack of reaction made me angrier. I hit him yesterday. My mother didn't want him to go, and is about to go on vacation with him. My younger brother hates him. He tells me that Dad's been calling him a loser.